Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FBC Radio Live. A few technical difficulties got us on the air a little bit late, but we are here, and we're going to be talking NFL, some Major League Baseball, maybe, and a little anniversary of one of my favorite Patriots games, John, because today, and I bring up the Patriots so I can bring up Tom Brady, of course, but I will obviously transition that into pointing out that one of his teams that he has a vested interest in is now back-to-back WNBA champion. So, you know, his aura is far-reaching, that is, and it's going to continue to be. Notice how he hasn't actually officially signed on with the Raiders yet, and they still stink. Just saying, John. Anyways, this is the, what would it be, the 2003 20-year anniversary of the big walk-off touchdown pass to Troy Brown in Miami. Back when they used to share the same field with the Marlins, and you had that awful, baseball field, as part of the football field. It was just it's incredible to think because you don't do that anymore now. But yeah, one of my favorite moments from certainly the early part of the Patriots dynasty, and one hell of an 80-yard touchdown pass.
That really was. I mean, and again, the Marlins were still playing because they actually won the World Series that year. They beat the Yankees.
Right.
And that was right around the same time the Red Sox and Yankees were fighting in the American League Championship Series, and that was heartbreaking for Red Sox.
That's when Aaron Boone got his job, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, he hit the big home run off of Wakefield in Game 7 and gets hired a decade and a half later and still has his job somehow. But the thing is, before Brady came around, the Patriots never won overtime games. Like, they always lost overtime games. I don't remember them ever winning them until he showed up. And the first one he won was against San Diego in 2001, which I think is sneaky one of the biggest wins in Patriots history. They were 1-3 at that point, down 11 in the fourth quarter. He rallied them, tied it, went to overtime, and won in overtime. If they lose that game, they're 1-4. That's tough to come back from. Instead, they're 2-3, and the rest is history. So that was a huge game back in 2001, as was beating Miami in 2003, because that's always been a tough place for the Patriots, even with Brady. But that was just a magical walk-off, as you said.
And look, I mean, I know a lot of people have convinced themselves that the AFC East was the worst division in the history of divisions. But the reality of it was they had some really good defenses, too, especially Miami. The Jets, obviously, later in that decade. But Miami, the early 2000s, had a really good defense. And, again, you go down there, you win in overtime, and you're right. That was kind of a conversation for a while. Like, oh, wow, they're actually winning overtime games now. So notice how that doesn't happen anymore. So just saying.
They don't get the overtime.
No.
Close enough to get the overtime. That would be good.
That's
I
true,
think
too.
Overtime loss would be at least something to view.
Yeah, well, we did celebrate that overtime loss to Dallas a couple years ago, so I guess you have a point there. So that was one of those moral victories, but clearly that got us so far that that they're 1-5 now. So, but I did see that pop up, and that's always one of my favorite Patriots moments. I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, let's be honest here. You can pretty much pick any day of the week, including yesterday, John, which was the anniversary in 2009 of Brady throwing 5 or 6 touchdowns. I'm sorry, 5 touchdowns in the second quarter, 6 all together against the Titans in a 59-0 blowout. We talked about this game recently when people were running around saying Miami had the most dominating win in NFL history, and we both rolled our eyes because, well, we realized that football is more than 5 years old. It extends beyond the most recent history, but that was one of the games that we brought up because, again, it was just pure domination. If you want to talk about domination, 59-0. But a game that I kind of almost wish they went back to and just let Brady just go, because like he could have shattered the touchdown record in a single game and just no one would have ever touched it. I'm pretty sure he sat out the majority of the fourth quarter too, if I'm not mistaken, if not the whole thing.
59-0 in the snow, a freak snowstorm in the middle of October. And Rodgers did that too in 2014. He had 6 touchdown passes in the first half against the Bears, and then didn't really throw the ball in the third quarter, sat out the fourth quarter. So either one of those guys could have thrown for, 8, 9 touchdown passes. Then Nick Foles hold the record with 7.
Well, he shares the record. Peyton Manning,
right?
Who else? There's a couple people that have thrown 7 touchdowns. Nick Foles, Peyton Manning.
Norm Van Brocklin
Yeah,
seems
well,
to pop
well,
up
I mean,
in a lot of these things, right?
yeah, well, I mean, like recent members.
Yeah.
There's one other, and I feel like I'm blanking on it. Completely absurd too. I'm gonna look this up again. We have the power of Google at our
You're,
fingertips.
well, you're
Uh,
you're like George with the zipper. Remember when he
yeah,
couldn't quite get that
yeah,
zipper
it
up
just
or down,
yeah.
and it just consumed him, like to the point where the psychiatrist, needed a psychiatrist after talking to George. But yeah, I mean, 59-0's pretty dominant. 73-0. Washington over the Giants in the 60s still stands out, like because Washington was never really all that good. They just got hot that day.
It was Drew Brees did it too.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I knew that. See, I knew that. I knew that.
No, you didn't. You had to look it up on Google.
Well, I did know it. I just,
You
I forgot it. Yeah.
That's true. You can know something and forget it.
I hey. I misplaced that information inside my massive brain, that holds so much knowledge. Every so often, you know what, something falls underneath the couch. So, but yeah, it's funny how those things work out because it's like it's 7 seems like that magic number, where it's just like you just for whatever reason you just don't go over 7 because there has been like I'm pretty sure Peyton Manning used like he was in there the whole time when he got 7, right? Like he was pretty much because I remember that game. I think the first pass of that game was a touchdown pass, and it was just like at that point because it was the season opener against Baltimore. And then I believe Nick Foles. Raiders. Yep. Okay, that makes
Raiders.
sense.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, because it's the Raiders, of course. But yeah, I mean, it just doesn't happen often, So it could have been cool to see Brady throw like 10. I feel like that would have been like that was realistic in that game because they were just all over. They were just all over the Titans in that game. But surprise, John. Guess what? James Harden didn't go to practice. He didn't show up.
No, he's in Houston, and from I do recall that he supposedly plays for the Philadelphia 76ers, so practice would be about 1,500 miles away.
Right.
He's in Philadelphia, and Joel Embiid's response was perfect. He said, I guess he had something else to do.
Yeah.
Which kind of sums up James Harden. They've got to move on from him because it's just going to be this black cloud over the team.
Right.
I don't know what they're going to get in return. And, Daryl Morey's a really hard-fest, stubborn guy at times. We saw what he did with Ben Simmons a couple of years ago, waited as long as he could before moving him. But I think they're going to have to move on from him at some point. He wants to play for the Clippers, and usually players get their way in the NBA, although Dame Lillard didn't. He ends up in Milwaukee instead of Miami, although Milwaukee was a good second choice, I would think.
It should have been the first choice. I think the heat culture thing is a little bit overstated. So I don't know. Again, I mean, we're talking about a team, give credit where credit's due, made it to the NBA Finals, but we're barely a playoff team and certainly have not improved like some of the other East contenders. So yeah, not a bad landing spot for Dame Lillard, but but also to the point, like who do the Clippers really want James Harden? I mean, yeah, I'm sure they do because they're the land of misfit old players, so I'm sure he's going to end up there at some point. But I mean, there's a pattern here, John. Like eventually, maybe it's not the organization. Maybe, just maybe, the player is the issue. And I think that's something that James Harden might be struggling with internally, because if he realized that maybe he was the problem, he'd stay in one spot and not have these trade demands or needs follow him around pretty much wherever he goes. But that's definitely something that is not it's going to be better for Philadelphia to figure this out sooner rather than later, because we've talked about it already. I mean, what have they really done to improve or at least keep up with Boston and Milwaukee?
Nothing. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the same group coming back. If James Harden comes back now, you're going to have to try to trade him and get something back in return. And I don't know if Joel Embiid is going to be as motivated this year. He won his MVP, kind of solidified himself as a future Hall of Famer. I mean, everyone seems to make the Hall of Fame in the NBA. So I don't know how motivated he's going to be. He's not quite at the level of Jokic and Giannis, who are highly motivated players who have won championships. So you can kind of count on them having these massive years. Embiid's great, but, is he going to check out at midseason if the 76ers are 5 games below 500? So I think that slipped off also in the East.
Yeah, and it's like, look, I mean, even when Embiid was motivated, they couldn't get out of the second round. They probably weren't
No,
better than Boston or Milwaukee, regardless of how, Milwaukee, we know, obviously got knocked out in the first round, but doesn't mean that they, they're still better than Philadelphia. Boston is still better than Philadelphia, and early returns looks like the Celtics might be a pretty darn good team. Was watching some of those highlights, and I love the awkward, lanky three from Porzingis. It's just there's something very I don't know, artistic about it. It just looks so
a
weird.
7-3 guy taking threes. I know,
and actually hitting them too. That's the thing.
He's a skilled guy.
Yeah,
It's kind of like Papa Shot with him.
Yep.
It's like he's shooting down at the basket.
Right. Yeah,
that's up to the basket. He's so tall.
That's what I think the awkward part of it is. It's like it kind of looks weird, but it goes in. No, I mean, look, it's early. It's preseason, obviously. You see, what kind of impact Holiday could potentially make on the Celtics team. You look at the potential that Dame and Giannis have together, and you look at the landscape of the East and say, well, it's kind of Boston, Milwaukee, and then everyone else, and included in that everyone else is Philadelphia, and I don't even know if they're the third everyone else. Because for a while it felt like, okay, Boston, Milwaukee, and then Philadelphia was kind of on the fringe there. You gotta give them credit, but I don't even know if it's them at this point. Certainly if they're going to go into the season with Harden still on the roster and him off at some, I don't know, some strip club in Houston.
He likes those strip clubs. Absolutely. He should just buy one at this point. I'm sure maybe
not that there's anything wrong with it.
No, it's a business, right? I mean, we saw that in The Sopranos. But, the thing about the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee and the Celtics just appear to be just better than everyone else. And they kind of were last year. It's just Milwaukee got upset in the first round. The team to watch out for is Cleveland because they have Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, too big.
I've heard this song and dance from you before, John.
Well, they were upset by the Knicks in the first round, but just keep an eye on them.
Okay, I will.
I'm always a year late with my Cleveland predictions, or a year early with my Cleveland predictions, including the Browns. But look, if they play Milwaukee in the series, Mobley and Jared Allen can certainly make Giannis work for his points. And is Donovan Mitchell that inferior to Dame Lillard? I don't think so. And then they also have Darius Garland. So I think that if that's a second round matchup, Milwaukee will be favorite. Most likely will win, but I think it'll be a 6-7 game series because Cleveland is good. So keep an eye on them and watch them lose in the first round again this year to some team that they should beat, like the Knicks.
Yeah, and I'll bring up this clip once again, just like I did last year.
Of course you will.
Probably. Of course, I remember everything. I'm like an elephant.
Well,
they're the ones who remember everything,
the
right?
Eagles on Sunday, and the Elephants too. Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember, John. It's been a while.
You couldn't remember.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Your memory's so good, you couldn't remember what animal remembers everything.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange twist of irony there, but like I said, it is really. It feels like it's the East. It's Boston, Milwaukee, and we're going to see it play out. And look, I mean, here's the thing. Dame's what, 32, 33.
Mm-hmm.
He'll
be fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be fine, but again, this isn't a 26-year-old player, 27-year-old player. So there's always risk. There's always, some sort of, you got to make sure that he stays healthy and, he doesn't hit any sort of physical decline because at their peak, again, that's a hard duo to stop, John. It really is. And, I think teams, how they're going to beat them is because they're going to be deeper. That's really what it's going to be about. But in basketball, we know that's not as important as I think in other sports because, well, there's so few players and your star players, especially in the playoffs, they play a lot of minutes. So, you know what I mean? There's not too many opportunities to get to that depth, is what I'm saying. So, anyways, real quick before we take off, because it is, we got Thursday Night Football tonight. So, gotta at least mention it. And Jacksonville, 4-2, taking on New Orleans. I mean, I like Jacksonville in this one. New Orleans has Derek Carr, and they're really. I mean, they got some talent on their roster, but I look at Jacksonville. These are games that they should win. I've been disappointed in them to some regard this season, because I feel like they that Kansas City game was just really disappointing in my eyes. I felt like they really dropped the ball, especially when you're an up and coming team. You don't have to necessarily win those games, but you want to see, excuse me, you want to see some fight out of them. Okay. And I know I'm harping on that one game, but that's a litmus test for them, and they kind of failed it pretty big. So I'm looking for the Bengals, or excuse me, Jacksonville, to come out and really dominate a team that they should dominate. They should go out there and absolutely win by a couple touchdowns, because quite frankly, the Saints just aren't that good. They have moments, but they're really not that good. So I like Jacksonville.
Yeah, I do too. Again, the big question mark is Trevor Lawrence going to play. That's the big question mark.
Right,
they can run the football too, and their defense has stepped up this year. I mean, they did hold Kansas City 17 points, although it seems like a lot of teams hold Kansas City to 17, 19, 21.
Yeah.
It's kind of what the range of Kansas City's been this year. Look, scoring's down in the league, right? 3 years ago, the average score was 51 points in a game. Now it's down to 44. That's a full touchdown. We can discuss that tomorrow on why that's the case. I think there's like 3 or 4 different theories. One of them may be that the quarterback play is not at the same level it was 3 years ago. But yeah, Jacksonville should. This is the kind of game they need to win, because then they can solidify themselves as the favorite in the AFC South, and it's a road win. And New Orleans does have a decent defense with some playmakers, but they're kind of like a middling team. Jacksonville is perceived to be a playoff team. This is the kind of win you need if you're Jacksonville to just add to what you're trying to build there.
Yeah, if you're Jacksonville, you don't have the equity to struggle against bad teams. Like, the Patriots every so often would struggle against a bad team, and sometimes they'd lose. And, there'd be, fear and doom for a little bit. But the reality of it was no one ever thought that, oh, this is bad, this is whatever. You're going to laugh at this at the end. Jacksonville doesn't have this. They lose to a bad team. All of a sudden, you're doubting what Jacksonville can do. And I think they need to get a little bit more consistent beating these bad teams. So, but yeah, I do like that. I like the idea of talking about what the offense is, because I do believe that part of the issue is quarterback play. I think it has, I mean, think about it. 3 years ago, John, we had Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers having 2 of their best seasons in 2020. Rodgers threw 48 touchdowns, Tom Brady threw 40. Both players, met in the NFC Championship game. Take it home, John.
Me.
Take it home,
John.
Don't
remind me. Yeah, you're factually right about that. They did meet in that championship game.
They did. They did. One fan looking up to Brady. It's kind of sweet, when you think about it.
Oh boy, that was a troubling loss. But also there were other quarterbacks that were pretty darn good that were still playing, like Ben Roethlisberger and Philip Rivers and Drew Brees. I mean, they were at the end of their careers, but they still knew how to play the position at a high level. So maybe physically they weren't there, but mentally they still were. So those 5 guys are gone.
Well, and we talked about it last week. I mean, we're not even close to having the group of, where it was Brady, Manning, Rodgers, and Brees. I mean, there's nothing close to that right now. I mean, I think the best quarterbacks might be the Phillip Rivers of the world right now, who are pretty good, but like imagine, a league full of Phillip Rivers. Okay. You have some great moments, but nothing. And again, this feels like I'm piling on Phillip Rivers, but the point is it's just not quite that level yet. Maybe it'll get there, but who knows? We'll talk more about that tomorrow as well. As giving our picks for the rest of the week. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.